It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. My lucky day. Don't need a pot of gold to wrap his boots on.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is Adrian Goins, and what are you watching? Oh, you're watching Coffee and Cloud Native. Hey, cool. Today's August 4th. I'm sorry. Every night I scour the internet for news and content related to Kubernetes and Cloud Native, and every morning I try and find some new and interesting and funny and stupid way to start the show. Cause it's 7:30 in the morning. It's still dark. Actually, it's starting to get light. We're rolling into spring, so as the show progresses, you'll see more and more light appear in my window in the mornings. Especially, I guess, once we switch to daylight saving time? I don't know. Anyway, every night I go through the whole thing. The whole internet. All of it. I go through all of it. And I pick roughly 10 things to talk about today. There's a handful of criteria, but basically if I wouldn't use it, I won't be talking about it. Of course, if you find this information valuable, please click that thumbs up button on the video so the YouTube algorithm shares it with other people. That's really important, and I really appreciate it for all of you who do. That sentence made no sense. Just do it, and know that I thank you for it. Anyway, I try to end each day with new knowledge that I didn't have when the day began, and I'm grateful that you're here with me so we can all learn and grow together. It's a half-hour show, so let's get started. Backing up Prometheus. I never really thought about backing up Prometheus. I don't use Prometheus for any real anything at all, so just having transient data in it is fine for me. But I do use other TSDB systems for tracking of net data metrics and all of my other stuff that I pump into Grafana. And backing up is important. Now, I just run backups of it, but if you were interested in doing anything related to snapshots, if you wanted to export it and move it somewhere else, or if you've never even really considered that the admin API will let you make instant snapshots, this gentleman has created a wonderful article that tells you how to back it up and how to load it into a Prometheus instance running on another pod. It's super easy to do. One of those things that fits the criteria of it's so easy, there's basically no reason not to do it. Stand by here while I close another browser window so that I can continue to update my internet. Ooh, internet news. I have found a provider who has who has an antenna on the tower that's on the hill that's literally right next to my house. I'm talking to them about possibly getting some good symmetrical higher bandwidth internet so that I can relegate my 4G connection to just a backup link. So fingers crossed, we might have solved the problem without having to build a tower on the property. But this leads me to another question that has nothing to do with Prometheus. Let me switch back to the other camera. I only stream to YouTube right now because that's the platform that I know best. And I'm wondering, should I also stream to Twitch? Like, I actually stream to Restream, so I can simultaneously stream to up to 30 different destinations. But I don't have a Facebook account. I don't really care about all this other stuff. But people tell me I should stream to Twitch. I've looked on Twitch, and the only thing I can find are gamers. And maybe some, like, live coders. But I can't find any content like this. I don't want to send content there if nobody's going to find it. So tell me in the comments, or if you're in the chat, tell me in the chat if Twitch is even something I should bother setting up an account with. If you would watch there over YouTube. The other thing about Twitch is if I set up Twitch, then I have to probably set up a Discord server so that we can aggregate the chat so that it shows up in one place. And that's not just more work for me, which is fine. I'm happy to do it. But it's another barrier. It's another hurdle that people have to overcome. But on the flip side, a lot of people don't join the chat because they don't have YouTube accounts, because YouTube is confusing where you have to create a channel. People are like, I don't want to create a channel. So we need to figure out what's the best intersection of all of the stuff. So if you would watch on Twitch, if you would rather have a Discord server, let me know. Speaking of chat, who we have in the chat? Good morning, Marcel. Good morning, Sajad. Peter, good morning from South Carolina. And Kovu, good morning from North Carolina. Both Carolinas in the house represent. Thank you all for joining. And Sebastian, good morning from Cordoba. Very nice. Cool. Well, thanks, guys. Oh, John says Zoom call. Not gonna do Zoom. There's lots of reasons. There's lots of reasons why. Zoom's not a platform for this, and I can do a Zoom call and I can stream out to YouTube, but no. Like, I post all my content on YouTube. That's where the videos are gonna end up anyway. I just want to make it easier for people to find the stuff. So let's get back to it. Next, we have... well, just to finish up the Prometheus thing. Gosh, that was really disjointed, wasn't it? To finish up the Prometheus thing, something you could use this for is snapshots. Not just snapshotting your data and then like looking at it somewhere else, but if you wanted to run snapshots on a more frequent basis, if you don't directly back Prometheus data up, running snapshots with the information here would allow you to run backups with a tool like borgmatic. And if you don't know what borgmatic is, it's today's tool of the day. See that? Foreshadowing. Literary. So stay to the end and you'll learn about borgmatic, assuming I don't run out of time. The Cloud Native, sorry, not the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, the Linux Foundation. They're not really the same people now, are they? Anyway, a couple weeks ago, they announced their Cloud Architect course thingy. And as part of that, they have this Service Mesh Fundamentals course, which was not available at the time, but it is available now. It's $300. But if you're going to pay $300 for this, really, honestly, you should just go to... Where's the more information on this thing? Overview, outline, prerequisites. Wow, yesterday I swear they had the link to their Cloud Native whatever thingy. Anyway, the Cloud Native, Cloud Academy, Cloud thingy. Hang on a second here. Advanced Cloud Engineer Bootcamp. This thing. Ooh, marked down from $2,300. This is $1,000, but it includes the CKA exam and a retest for it. It includes this other course. So right there, that's $600. So you might as well just go through this, honestly. This is a 6-month course. It's $1,000 and includes the CKA and includes a bunch of other stuff. And will turn you into a cloud native expert. Anyway, they announced it with this. It wasn't available. It's available now. So there you go. Did you hear about this yesterday? Microsoft joins the Open Source Security Foundation. Dum, dum, dum. Less interesting in that, so it's less interesting to me that Microsoft joined it. It's more interesting to me that it exists. It was created. It includes representatives from GitHub, Google, IBM, OWASP, Red Hat, some others. GitHub, it's funny that they include GitHub separately because Microsoft owns GitHub. So Microsoft and Microsoft. The objective is actually quite cool. We talk about security on the show. I feel like a few years ago, before all of this container nonsense, we had a pretty good grasp on how to defend our systems from persistent threats. You had systems, you had firewalls, you had web application firewalls, you had, like, it was understood. And now all of that's been just blown open with Kubernetes and containers, and we're in a place where we're pulling down Docker images from unknown sources, we're just running them because we're all taking the easiest path. And security is hard. They've created this foundation with the objective of providing educational material for developers and operators to understand how security is different in a cloud-native world where everything can talk to everything, to give them training materials, best practices, recommendations, and also to have a faster path to remediation of security incidents, vulnerabilities. So it's partially about information sharing, it's partially about education, it's partially about, I don't know what they're going to do for the remediation portion, but maybe, that'll come out of the information sharing. I think that in general, this is a good thing, but it remains to be seen. If it truly disseminates information to everybody and levels the playing field, then it's good. If they screw it up because they're a bunch of corporations, then it's less good. But we'll see. It's better that it exists than that it doesn't. Our friends over at Litmus have released another tutorial. I talked about their show. They have a new YouTube channel. They're a chaos engineering platform, and they only had a couple of videos last week. They've got a new one now. It's just a little over 20 minutes. Their other one was 30, and then there was one that I think was 45. So they're moving really fast, and I want to continue to, raise awareness about them, because it's nice to see them not just releasing their product and promoting their product, but also releasing material for the community so that people can learn about their product and use it. This is a CNCF sandbox project, and, well, there's another tutorial for you. The end. Like, it's moving fast today. How do you guys start your day? Like, what do you do before, well, for those of you who are in the afternoon, tell me how you start your day when you actually start it. But for those of you who join me first thing in the morning, like, do you just roll out of bed, grab a coffee, and come sit here, and like your hair is sideways, and you're in your sweatpants or whatever? Or do you have like a routine that gets you fired up and pumped and ready to go for the day? Let me know in the comments. What do we got here? Yes. Okay. I almost didn't include this. Yesterday I talked about Gloo, the Kubernetes lazy user manager from I Build the Cloud. And it's a CLI tool, and it's based on CRDs, and it's super simple, and it's made by Darren, and I love it. But not everybody likes the CLI. I mean, that's why we've got things like Rancher, right? Like, Kubernetes CLI, but lots of people like GUIs. This is a tool for building and managing RBAC permissions that has a web interface with a really horrific Giphy that we'll just scroll past. I guess it's not a Giphy, but whatever, it's an animated GIF. The web interface runs in the cluster as part of the whole application that you deploy, and it's a little bit different from Gloo in that you can create templates, so you can have templates and you can stamp those out for the various roles, but it works the same way. You can pick the roles, it'll spit back a kube config that you can hand to whoever the ultimate destination is. The only thing that I didn't like about it, and why I almost didn't include it, is the way that they do their templating. They actually have cluster roles with a specific naming convention. If you just have a couple of templates, that's not a big deal. If you have lots of templates, then you're going to pollute the cluster role space with lots of templates. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. They say that they recognize they should have done it as CRDs, that CRDs are in the roadmap. So if you want to use this, please also open an issue and say, make those into CRDs, or make them into config maps, or make them into something that's a little more Kubernetes-y. Otherwise, it looks fine for doing RBAC permissions, control and configuration and management of your Kubernetes cluster with a GUI. This one's good. This is like a surprise for me today. I made all of these links and everything last night. I was really tired, so I haven't reviewed them yet this morning to remember what I wrote. Do you ever do that? You get up the next morning, you go back and you look at the code you wrote yesterday, and you're like, I am a genius. That hasn't happened to me in a while. Oh, we got people posting in the chat what they do to wake up in the morning. What do we got? Let's take a look at that really quick. Wojtek, cześć. Let's see. Brendan, good morning from the UK. Peter, stick with YouTube. Purchase for the gamers. A Slack channel might be a good idea. Yeah, it's yet another Slack thing to manage, but okay, that's good info. Jamo, up at 5:30 and running. Nice. Breakfast, coffee, and cloud native. Woohoo! And we got Peter, workout and watch the live stream. Sweet. Thanks. You watching it while you're working out? If so, that's cool. I mean, if not, that's also cool. Tej, hola amigo. Binoy, lunchtime and coffee from Cape Town, South Africa. Very nice. We're like on sister latitudes. I was thinking about Africa yesterday and how, like, from South America south, we actually get the cold. And I was like, what do they have in Africa? And I realized that south of South Africa, there's actually nothing. So you guys don't have like mountains with snow and stuff. At least not like we do, getting towards Antarctica. But otherwise, the central part of Chile and South Africa, I think, are more or less the same. We have very similar climates. Tej, evening time in India, probably drinking tea. Nice. All right. Sam Weston did a 15-minute presentation for the Civo community on Prometheus, Alert Manager, and Grafana. And he did it for K3S. Now, this will work just fine for Kubernetes K3s. K3s is Kubernetes. It's just got a bunch of default stuff that you're not going to use stripped out of it, so you can decide what to put back in. That makes it really small. But I often see people are confused about, is K3s like a neutered version of Kubernetes? And it's not. It's just really fast and really small. So he did it for Civo. Civo provides K3s environments. It's currently in beta. He has a link in here where you can join their beta program. Anyway, he did a whole 15-minute thing on setting up monitoring with Prometheus and using K3s. But what's different about this compared to other how do you install Prometheus type tutorials is that he built it to be really sparse. He didn't build it like if you go to enable rancher monitoring, you need a lot of resources for all of the different Promethei that it creates and the Grafana dashboards and stuff like that. But when you're doing stuff on K3s, despite it being totally at home in a data center environment or anywhere else, it's designed to be small and lightweight. So solutions that carry that forward that are also small and lightweight, I have a special place in my heart for them. He's obviously using this to monitor his own stuff. He set up alerts via email. In fact, he has a whole Git repository over here that has all of the YAML that he used in the demonstration, so you can follow along and stuff like that. That's actually where the link is to the Civo beta. So he used the Prometheus operator to fire it up. That's relevant because I'm going to talk about operators next. And so on and so forth. He set it up to actually monitor the ingress controller, which is traffic on K3s by default. That's cool. And then he also set it up to monitor external websites, just so he can get alerts on like stuff outside of the cluster happening. And then he set up the watchdog so that he's sending it to a Lambda function. This just continuously sends an alert that it's up. So if the Lambda function stops receiving that, it knows that the monitoring is down, and that's out-of-band monitoring of the monitoring system. So there's your meme for the day. This whole thing is great. And granted, that Lambda function would be just as talking is hard. That Lambda function would be just as well served by an OpenFaaS function or any other serverless platform. If you use Civo, you can actually just, from their app catalog, deploy OpenFaaS. And granted, you don't want to have your monitoring of the monitoring on the system that's doing the monitoring, because if it all goes down, you still don't know. But you could have another Civo instance, or you could have something outside and run OpenFaaS on that. Whatever. You don't need to use Lambda. But now let's talk about operators. Peter watches my show while working out. Very cool. More push-ups. I start my day with Ramwad. Ramwad it's a stupid name for a thing, but basically it's like yoga for CrossFit people. It's just stretching, but it's designed to increase your range of motion, and it's designed for CrossFit people who, because they work out so aggressively, often lose range of motion in their muscles. So it's long stretching of hips and back and hamstrings and stuff like that. And I find it to be so relaxing and so invigorating to have, like, I start the day feeling like I'm like a spaghetti noodle. And that flexibility makes me feel just so much less tension. Anyway, you're now looking at this guy's face on the screen for much longer than I meant for you to. Let's scroll past that. I don't do a lot with operators for various reasons. But one of the things that I always struggled with operators... man, I just can't talk today. One of the things where I always struggled when working with operators is reconciling the idea that so like you got the etcd operator. Operators are largely created to install something the same way multiple times. And that makes sense if you have, a large cluster and you need something stamped out in lots of different namespaces or whatever the use case is. But I look at something like the etcd operator, the one time that I needed to deploy etcd, and I just was like, why am I going to go through the extra effort of having a thing that can do something multiple times when I'm only going to do it once? Like, why does that exist? Why do I have this extra layer of stuff? I've never heard that argument from anyone else. So I assumed that I was wrong somehow. And so all these things have operators. I think operators, there are times when they're appropriate. And he talks about this in his article. There are times where first you need to stamp out multiple stuff, or you need an operator to do a bunch of wiring that you can't do with just a Helm chart, or you need it to pay attention to what's going on and like kill and restart stuff. Like there is a place for operators. But what he talks about in the article, the article is my name's Adrian and I'm 13. What he talks about in the article is that there's a lot of operator abuse where people are building operators for something that just needs to be installed once. And that opens up the cluster to potential vulnerabilities because of the power that operators have. So if you're going to deploy something, consider whether it needs an operator or whether it would be just as well served, I can say it now, just as well served by a Helm chart. And pick the tool that is appropriate. Now, he talks about a bunch of other stuff. It's not actually in the article. It's the New Stack Context podcast where they interviewed this gentleman. And so he talks about various things related to Kubernetes that are interesting. Configuration drift, Kubernetes operators, as I just ranted about, the importance for continuous delivery, why managed platforms are potentially better than rolling your own platform. And he's the CTO of Allside, who I know nothing about, but, well, he's the CTO of Allside. There you go. And this was interesting. COVID, the worst party guest ever. You ever been at a party and there's like that one person and you're just like, how do I make him go away? And you can't. Well, eventually we'll figure out how to make it go away. But what I thought was interesting about this is I was not aware that this had affected the release schedule for Kubernetes 1.19. Kubernetes 1.19. Now, I don't actually pay a lot of attention to the Kubernetes release cycle because when something new is released, I never just go and deploy it. I'm usually a version, like a major or minor release behind, depending on their release naming conventions. So I let other people try stuff out, and then I let other people deal with all of the errors, and then I let other people fix them, and then I roll in, a year later, and I deploy it, unless there's some kind of security issue. Well, 1.19 apparently was supposed to come out on June 30th. Now they say that it's scheduled to come out on August 25th, and they hope to still get a 1.20 release out this year, and then they're also hoping that they can get back to an every 3-month release cycle. How do you do your Kubernetes upgrades? Do you do them every 3 months when they come out? Do you do them every 6 months, but on a 3-month delay, so you're actually staying one release behind? Let me know in the comments or in the chat. Apparently, the release schedule of Kubernetes is a point of pain for a lot of people, but what's the opposite? Do you just not do it? I don't know. I guess you have to measure the pain. Now we're into Greek mythology. A pound of flesh or a Kubernetes upgrade? Which do I choose? I don't know. I think my wife put something in my coffee. Gloo released 1.4.8 yesterday, and now I'm a liar because I immediately updated it. But I did it. I didn't update this because, well, I just updated it because I just installed Gloo on my home cluster, and I don't have anything running on it yet. So if I had waited a week, this is the version I would have installed anyway. So it was safe to just upgrade it, and I wanted to experience their upgrade process, which is kind of painful. I mean, it's not their fault. They actually have provisions to make it less painful, but it rips out the proxy pods and puts new ones in. So how do you upgrade the thing that's responsible for network traffic into your cluster while also keeping it online? They do make recommendations. It's not on this page. They do make recommendations when doing upgrades on having your external load balancers handle the health checking. And in fact, in this version, that's one of the things that they added additional support for. They now support a Kubernetes pre-stop hook so that you can do a graceful shutdown. And basically this will fail health checks from the outside while passing health checks from the inside. So internal services or internal resources that use the Envoy proxies for internal communication will still work, but the load balancers will fail the external health checks. So now you can do a rolling update of the Envoy proxies. So that's cool. I just upgraded. I didn't actually go and... Well, it wouldn't have worked anyway, because now it's in there. So next time there's an upgrade, I'll look at actually using it. Next time. Oh my gosh, it's 7:55? Seriously? Oh, okay, I'm gonna have to punt a bunch of stuff to tomorrow. Man, that's crazy. That's never happened before. Okay, we're gonna jump to the tool of the day, because I'm not gonna go over. Tool of the day is borgmatic, which is actually here, and is actually very small. What is borgmatic? I'll tell you. First of all, borgmatic is powered by Borg. There you go. Borg is a backup solution that does deduplication and encryption, and it can perform backups over SSH. The combination of all of this means that you have really, really, really small backups because of all the deduplication. But Borg itself is not, it's kind of a nightmare to use. So borgmatic is a kind of a wrapper around Borg that gives you a really nice configuration language or structure that you can use for all of your backups. So you can define your daily, your weekly, your monthly. Think Time Machine if you use a Mac, but for everything else with deduplication. I hate Time Machine because I have these giant backups because it backs up like cache files. It just backs up your whole machine, and there's garbage on there that I certainly don't need to keep for a year. I looked at using borgmatic on my Mac, and I had that running fine for a while, but all of the recent Mac security stuff about what processes are allowed to look at full disk data, and it's totally undocumented and totally unreliable. So you end up with things like backup solutions that just might not back directories up because they don't have permission, even though they're running as root and they've been granted full disk access. And so anyway, I went back to Time Machine. But I use this for everything else. And I particularly use this for my Kubernetes clusters where I have something, do I have this up? First of all, I maintain the borgmatic Docker container. So if you're interested in running this inside your cluster, Monachus/borgmatic. And I'm going to very embarrassedly show you my old home cluster, which is really old and outdated, so don't laugh at me too hard, but I want to show you how I have this set up. So you see I have borgmatic here, and I have something here called MySQL dump NAS. And this just runs MySQL dumps on an interval and writes them out to a shared folder. Then twice a day, borgmatic comes along and it picks up that shared folder, which runs off of NFS. It also picks up somebody just tweeted something and it totally derailed me. It picks up iSCSI volumes that are read-only, so that it can grab all of the persistent volumes of everything, and then it makes a full backup of those things, and it writes it out over SSH to a different external data store. And I don't have it up on the screen, but I will just jump back and show you the kind of deduplication that you'll get. So you see here in this example, they show that the all archives, out of 1.25 gigabytes is actually using 560 megs. That's not a really good example. I looked at my numbers last night, and I have the equivalent of 7 terabytes of data, but it's been deduplicated and compressed, and it's only using 310 gigabytes of storage. So that's better than a 20-to-1 ratio of compression and deduplication. Borgmatic is absolutely amazing. Check it out. The stuff that I punted from today to tomorrow, just so you can get excited about tomorrow's show before we wrap this up, is... let's see, we already talked about that. We're going to talk about contour. We're going to talk about... Oh, yeah, I can't talk about that one. Oh, yeah, so I didn't punt very much. But there'll be a couple of things that we'll talk about tomorrow in addition to all of the other tomorrow stuff. Last look at the chat. All right, people are generally saying don't go to Twitch. Okay. Hey, good morning, Ariel. And... yeah, okay, so Kovu says you can include stuff from Time Machine backups by adding them to the exclusion list. Yes, if you can figure out what it backed up. I don't know all of the cache directories and log directories and the stuff that's buried deep down, and Time Machine gives you nothing that says what it backed up. You just look at it and it's like, I'm backing up 12 gigabytes of data. You're like, you backed up 14 gigabytes of data an hour ago. What in the name of Steve Jobs are you backing up? And it won't tell you. I do have obvious things excluded, things that have the word cache in them, log directories and stuff like that, but there's just stuff in there that changes on a regular basis that is completely unrelated to my need to restore data in the event of a disaster. I would be much happier with Time Machine if I could just get a list of what it was doing so that I could go back in and add that stuff to the exclusions list. If any of you know how to get that, if any of you are Time Machine wizards, if you're a Time Machine wizard, that's really cool. Please let me know. Help. Okay. Kobu says a tool called Backup Loop that gives info. Does that give info about Time Machine? Are you a Time Machine wizard? I'm going to write that down, and I'm going to go look at that right after the show. But we got to get out of here. So let's get out of here. Hello? Ah, there we go. My little script wasn't moving. So we got to get out of here. As usual, all of the links for today's stuff, except for the things I punted to tomorrow, will be in the video description shortly after the show ends. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll get a notification when that happens, and then you'll get notifications throughout the day that now have timestamps pointing to the specific place in the video where that thing was presented. So you can share those links, and people don't have to watch the whole thing, but obviously, of course, I hope that they do. If you use anything that I talked about, let me know. If there's anything you want me to look at, let me know. Link, info, contact, stuff, video, description, blah, good. And yeah, I want to thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, it was crazy. Subscribe to the channel, click the bell so you get notifications when the next show starts. I will be here every weekday because there's always something to talk about. And apparently I can talk a lot. So I want you all to have a great day or a great evening. Keep learning, and I will see you in the next show.